Welcome. My name is William Messakar. I am a master model railroader in the 4th Division of the Pacific Northwest region of the National Model Railroad Association. I want to welcome all of you to the virtual layout tour we'll have presented today by members of the NMRA. We would encourage you to find out about the NMRA and join in order to participate in these virtual tours. We have other virtual clinics and other activities for the National Model Railroad Association that we think you'll find a big help to your modeling, and you'll get to meet model railroaders just like you. So welcome to our tour, and I hope you enjoy it.
Our next layout tour will be Stephen Shores.
I'm going to start a video first. It's a 7-minute video, but I live in Puyallup, and I am retired. Occupational therapist. I've always been into model trains since I was a kid, like many people. Not so much into the history of trains, but just the modeling part. I love to build structures. I love to build benchwork, lay track, all that. You know, give me a tool and I'm a happy camper. And my layout is very freelance, pretty much just the Northwest 50s HO scale. And no particular prototype. I really set it up for operations. I kind of did things backwards, where I built the loop layout first and then thought, okay, now how do I operate it? And so I got a lot of feedback from a variety of people on how to expand it and improve it. So I'll start out with a video and I'll kind of narrate during the video, and then I'll go to a PowerPoint and show you some stills. It's in my basement. The room's about 20 feet by 13 feet. Swing up bridge when you enter. It's around the walls and a peninsula. I started in '95, sheetrocked the whole room, put in the ceiling, new plumbing, new electrical. I'm heading here from south to north, Pacific Shores Railroad. So I'm going, it's north and southbound rather than east and west. Large yard there in the middle. And this is the town of Laudry, which is at the south end of the railroad. Behind that wall, there's a staging too that I'll show you later. This is the small town of Laudry. You can see a team track there at the bottom of the screen. Passenger station. There's no runaround here, but I use the passing siding for the runaround for operations. Laudry Wood Products, Mad Cow Meats. You've got meat out and cattle in. Across the bridge at Shower Canyon, Central Valley Bridge. Don't get dizzy here. It gets a little fast here. It's hard to not go too fast. I was holding my friend's drone and it took out a lot of the movement, but if you walk too fast. This is South Seward, where I've got paper products. I've got Price and Sons produce. That's the Matheson and Western interchange there into that tunnel portal. And I've got Seward lumber there. The old cemetery. My new gypsy wagon. The gypsies are coming to town. Be careful. And the tunnel on the right goes up to the mine. The tunnel on the left is the main line to North Seward. You'll see the mine up on the hill. So this is North Seward here. Pretty much Shaw Coal and Fuel. And then the UP interchange there in the background in the lower tunnel portal where that boxcar and that tanker are setting. And this little loop, a track here at the bottom of the screen, originally was going to go away because I was going to run point to point through a bunch of hidden area, but I decided that was just going to be a headache. So it remained so, and I kind of modified my plan. This is coming around Walter's Yard. It's a very large yard. It's got 6 classification tracks, 3 inbound, outbound tracks, engine escape, through caboose track, run around. It's very, very operational, a lot of fun to operate. The classifying switcher does not get in the way of any inbound or outbound trains because there's separate tracks there. So it's a very functional. Thank you, Doug Walters, for great feedback on this yard as well as the entire layout. I failed to have any trains running during the video. It's kind of funny because I'm so used to just leaving things where they are like a chessboard because I'm set up for operations, so I don't run things around. This is the engine facility here. I've got steam in, diesel in, everything out tracks, plus a service track. This tunnel goes up to the hilltop area, which is on the other side. The engine house there is removable, so you can see the pits inside. The turntable here on the left is totally manual. It's just finger operated. I tried to stay very, very simple. You'll see that there's not much on the fascia. I only have 6 tortoise machines in the entire layout. Everything's hand thrown or thrown through scenic details. This is a hilltop area. This is hilltop cement and gravel. Gravel there at the bottom of the screen, cement in at the top. And then you'll see Sutter lumber in the background where the lumber goes out. And there's a runaround track there too to the top left of the screen. Wood chips out. You can see there in the background, logs in, pulpwood out. That's lumber out there. And then northwest transfer and storage there at the end of that one track on the upper level. And then this is the town of Union. It's the largest city. You've got the Union cold storage there on the right where the reefers are. In the background, you've got Union Grain, Stoll Bakers, the brown building on the left. There's a recent barge that I built there in the lower photo there. You'll see the mirror in the background that enlarges that city. You'll see there the drone I'm holding in my hand. And then this is S&S Salvage as well as Coastal Petroleum. And then the train actually goes under the petroleum and goes into the staging room. And that's all accessible from the back side. If I need to take it apart, it comes apart just like a puzzle piece. So moving a little fast there, but so I'm going to go out. There's my friend Doug. He's operating the camera while I'm holding the drone. He didn't want to fly it in there. He didn't want to damage the drone or damage my layout. So the adjacent bedroom, it's really more of an office. It's not a bedroom anymore. It's music room and office. I've got 8-track staging there along that back wall. I'll show you still photos. This has changed a whole lot. It doesn't look like this now. There's actually an industrial area right there over the turntable. So I've got Northwood and Southport in here now. So this is the end of the, starting and the end of the railroad right in here. 8-track staging. Got a double crossover in there now, which doesn't show up in the photo, in the video. And that's about it. Okay. HO standard gauge, about the 50s, freelance. I like Northern Pacific and Great Northern. I have 2 interchanges of the UP and the Matheson and Western. The size and the dimensions I discussed, pretty much used Atlas Code 83 and Walther's Turnouts. Turnouts have really worked flawlessly. They're pretty much power rooted. I don't have a lot of fancy electronics in there, and they work pretty flawlessly. Minimum radius 24, L girder and open grid combination. Typical roadbed, 3/4 ply, some Homasote, and then cork roadbed. Mostly kit bash plastic kits. I don't have the patience to spend a lot of time scratch building. I really want to get down to some operations, so I do the best that I can. I came across cases and cases of plaster gauze through my work that was discarded. So I've got tons of that for my hard shell cover that I made for my scenery. My backdrop is stenciled clouds with white spray paint, and then I've got sponge trees and mountains. A lot of 2D paper building prints and photos. I pretty much use spirea and butterfly bush for all of my trees. Painted them with green paint and then sprinkled ground foam and then hit them with clear paint. They're pretty durable. NCE wireless controls, a DCC. Operation single main line with point to point, and I've got a common Y staging and connecting track for continuous loop running through the adjacent staging room. Started building the room in '95, getting ready for it long time ago, and really want to give some thank you to Doug Walters. Had a major impact on my track design, my industry's yard designs, and all the operations. Marshall Wilson and Greg Wright have given me lots of great feedback on my operations. Doug Price, Mike Shaw, and Scott Stoll, local Puyallup folks, have given me a lot of inspiration, motivation, and spent many hours BSing and having a lot of good times. And then Doug Frolick, my good friend that did the video. So this is the layout from above. This is compliments of trackside model railroading that Jenny and Ross do, and I've modified it. So down here in the left corner now I have Northwood and Southport in that staging room that you saw. So Northwood, I can come from the north and travel around the layout. So everything starts either in Northwood or Southport and terminates in the yard. And then when the trains are terminated in the yard, they're broken up, reclassified, and then 5 local out and back turns exist. So there'll be a turn out of a Walters yard that'll go to North Seward and back. There'll be another one that goes to South Seward and back. There'll be a third that then goes to Laudry and back. And then there's 2 more turns that go from Walters Yard to the Hilltop and back, and then to Union and back. Also, then there's the additional 2 manifest trains that go from Walters Yards and they return back to Northwood, or if they head south, then they go out and they come in to Southport. And so you'll see later on that I've got a lot of industrial switching here for Northwood and then industrial switching here for Southport. This is my staging room where everything starts, and I'm working on both of these areas. There's the 8 tracks. You can see the double crossover. So trains coming in can use this as a runaround. I've got one industry back here, which is a Pacific Power. And then here's the remaining part of Northwood. This is all under construction right now, so I don't have everything finalized, but this is pretty much what it's going to look like. So the train will come in here and stage then on these tracks. Before this train leaves Northwood, it will switch this area, pick up these cars, and then go into the main layout room to Walters Yard. When it returns back to this area, it will then set out cars in these 4 areas. There's Grandin stockyards here, and there's logging here. There's a freight house here, and then at the end of the line, there's that power company. So you've got facing and trailing points. The other side of the room, which in the video there was nothing, but now this is Southport. So you'll come in and do the same thing here before the train leaves to go to the main layout room. It will switch this area, and then coming back, it will switch this area. I have a box company here. I have a fabricator and steel manufacturing here. I have a grocery distribution warehouse here. And then this is what I'm working on right now. This is a plaster casting. It's just not painted yet. And that I'll have a port and a small portion of a barge here in the water here.
How did you go about selecting what industries you wanted to represent?
I, you know what, to be honest, when I first started, I selected kits that were just interesting, that had variety in their appearance. I also wanted industries that could support each other on my layout, so I didn't have a whole lot of stuff off layout. So it's really worked out well. I've got a very few industries that are off layout that would be mostly in Northwood and Southport in this area. Anything such as chemical tankers, I don't have a place to create, you know, chemicals. So I do that off layout. Been kind of a combination. There's the Y that comes in and out of Northwood on the left and Southport on the right. So freelancing, I can kind of do whatever I want. You know, I chose industries that were, you know, relatively characteristic to the 1950s. Like I say, I'm not big on history. I'm not very knowledgeable about the history. I'm not very knowledgeable, to be honest, about prototypical railroading. But I just like to build models, and I love to operate. So this is coming into the room with the swing gate. And these are homemade hinges here, just using aluminum channel carved with a hacksaw and strategically placed. And the drop-in was built first, and then I added the hinges, and it operates flawlessly. So basically what I did on my background, I took the Walthers Instant Horizon paper backdrops, and I had their blue color scanned at the paint store. And so my blue is the same as the very, very light blue of the Walthers paper backdrops. And then I used stencils to paint the white clouds. Then I would pencil in the distant background. This is my darkest color. And there are no trees. It's just a pencil line here. I would paint that first, and then I would mist it with white. And then I would do the next layer. And the next layer has small trees just painted with a brush, and it's a different color of green. And then I would mist that layer with white just to give it a distance. And then I had a third color. I'll mention it. You don't really see it in this photo, but there's about 3 or 4 layers. But I would mist each layer as I would move forward. And then as I got forward, I just cut out sponges in the shapes of small trees and just daubed those on to create kind of the treetops.
Could you please show the previous slide with those trees?
Yeah, there you go.
How did you do those trees?
Those are just with a sponge. I just cut a sponge in that shape, and then I would daub it into some paint, and if it was excess, I would daub it off, and then it has quite a good effect. So this is the town of Laudry. My workbench is under here. So trains come from the south here through the town of Laudry. And I'll go pretty quick. I don't have a picture of the team track, but it's on the far right. You can see a mirror there. Mad Cow Meats. This is Meat Out, Laudry Wood Products. Mad Cow yards where the cows come in. And then the bridge across Shower Canyon. The train's just staged there. It's running the opposite direction of where we're going. But there you can see, you know, this is the darker color. It's kind of washed out in the photo, but this is for a darker gray, kind of a distant gray. And then it's misted. And then this is painted in with a brush and misted. And then this is sponged in and then misted. So there's 3 layers there. Cast rocks, plaster cast rocks. Coming around the turn into South Seward. This is the Matheson Western Interchange. You can see the trees. South Seward, I've got Price and Sons Produce here in the foreground. Superior Paper in the back, where I've got paper going out. I've got pulp coming in, I've got chemicals coming in, and then Seward Lumber over here, where I've got lumber coming in. Small runaround track here, very functional, thanks to my feedback from all my operations experts. Got to have those runaround tracks. Those are my new watermelons. tunnel on the right goes up to the mine, Deadman Industries. The tunnel on the left then continues on to North Seward. Small passenger station here on the left, lower. The only industry at North Seward then is Shaw Coal and Fuel. I've got coal coming in and fuel coming in also. All my buildings are just kind of bashed. They're combinations and they're either enlarged or made smaller in the original kit. You can see the trestle here up to Deadman Industries. And then this is the UP interchange here. You can see the UP interchange here, and then the trestle here up to Deadman Industries, which is a coal mine. Sorry if I went too fast there. There's just kind of my coal dump. There is a good view of the trees. Kind of some storm clouds in the background. And then this is all just painted, no treetops here because it's such distance in the, and then a darker color here with brushed trees and then sponge trees, each layer being misted. Two tracks here, and then this is the siding for supplies to come into Deadman Industries. Coming around the corner into Walther's Yard. Got my mobile homes and my garden in back in the corner there. And these are 3 inbound, outbound tracks here. They're all numbered 1, 2, and 3. A through caboose track, engine escape track, icing track, and then classification tracks. And ladder here with a runaround right in here. Got a couple double slips here, 2 double slips and a 3-way. So again, through suggestions from my gurus, it really shortens the space that you need to do a lot of work by putting in those double slips and those 3-ways. Coming around the bend, there is my engine facility. This is the tunnel portal that goes to Hilltop, which is on the opposite side. Steam in, diesel in, everything out, tracks, manual turntable. Hilltop area, which has Hilltop cement and gravel. And then Sutter lumber on the left with the chips and the logs in and the lumber out. I'll talk about this 3-way later on. I've got controls over here to control that 3-way because it's out of reach. It's not electric, it's totally manual. This has worked flawlessly. This is just some code 100. I had the old Atlas turnouts and they work flawlessly. And then we'll close up. I think that's probably the only wood kit I have on here is that chip loader. Yeah. My water scene coming into Union in the background here. The water, for water and roads, I just use joint compound. The nice thing about joint compound, it's very slow to dry. And you can mold it and conform it then with a wet sponge. If you want it to be a road, you can just keep sponging it until it's just as smooth and crowned as you want for a road. If you want it bumpy for water, it's very easy to gouge it out, put a little bit more joint compound in, keep treating it with a wet sponge, and you can create some good effects. So this is the larger town of Union. These are a combination of plastic flats and then paper printouts. Federal Cold Storage, Union Grain, Stoll Bakers. Got a small runaround track, I think, between these 2 tracks here. And then this is S&S Salvage, which is at the north end of Union. And then the train disappears right here. It goes up behind this bridge and disappears in here to go into staging. So this, you can see the rail in the back, but I've got it blocked with greenery. Can't really see it once it goes behind that bridge. And so this is just static display here. Doesn't have anything to do with the railroad, but coastal petroleum. So the basically I added this up here to kind of justify having these two rails down here for loading the tanks. Illusions. So I've used a couple mirrors. This is a mirror that's at the one end of Laudry. And you can see that this building is duplicated here, but I blocked out so you can't see the sign. I've got also printed signs on the back of this building. They're printed backwards, so when you look in the mirror, you can see it. Obviously, there's some duplication here, but actually, as you're operating, it really enlarges the whole scene. And then here's the tunnel that goes through into the next room. So there's a cutout here in the mirror so that the trains actually go through. Got a box car on the bridge here. One side's painted one color. And then at Union, I also have a very large mirror that just totally expands. So this building is half of what you see. It's duplicated by the mirror, as well as the structure here too, Stolbakers. Quite effect, and you don't see yourself when you're operating. And it's amazing to see that mirror removed, how small it makes everything. Tunnel portal going up to the Hilltop area. It's a very short tunnel. I didn't want to be able to see through it to Hilltop. So there's black fringe hanging inside that tunnel. You can see the black fringe. Just went to the fabric store. It's hanging about 1/8 of an inch off the rail. And the train cars just go right through it, no problem. And it just falls back in place and it blocks the light. So when you look in that tunnel, you're not looking at the other side. And same from both directions. It's only about probably 10 inches deep, that tunnel. Had a major structure. I'm in the basement, so this supports my house, a major beam in an old 1927 home. So I just built my building around it to kind of hide that. You don't really even notice that it's there. So Mad Cow Meat's there with the fresh meat going out. Really tight turn at the south end of Walter's yard where the main line comes around. This is only about a 1/2 inch distance here. So I created a illusion of a road in the background here with just some paper cutouts there. You can see the trees there painted. Very, very little distance here at Sutter Lumber. I didn't have a whole lot of room, but I wanted to indicate this was log loading. So I just took a log loader and cut it in half. Everything's kind of Velcroed to the back. Even my logs are cut in half. And it indicates where the cars need to be spotted. What am I showing here? Other than my bridge and my mirror. Oh, I guess the track going in here. Yeah, you don't see it disappear to go into staging. Turnout controls. Everything, I tried to stay as manual as possible. I used these little wires made from piano wire, and they're just bent. And I drill down through the second tie. It goes all the way through the roadbed. So this wire is about 3 inches long. I can pull it out. I can replace it. I can rebuild it. And you just use your finger to pop the turnout from one position to the other. So this is what they look like. You have to make a few before you get the hang of them. Some of them don't work, some of them do. And so you just pull it out and remake it until you get a nice snug snap in both directions. Here I've got a turnout here because I've got the main line and I've got the passing siding. But if you try to reach in here, you're going to break those trees. I wanted the trees there to block the view of the tunnel where it disappears in here. So here I've got a pickup truck. It's attached to that turnout with a wire. And all you do is slide the pickup truck forward and backward to go from siding to main line. So the little wire here just goes in with a 90-degree bend on the bottom side, and it's JB welded in the bottom of that pickup truck. That's been working for years and years. And then that wire just goes and operates that turnout. Again, I've got the tunnel blocked with these trees. There's a turnout right here. You do a lot of damage reaching around here. So the culvert over here is just attached to a wire, and you push and pull that culvert, and that then operates that turnout. There's 5 areas where I've got scenic details. Up here in Deadman Industries, where the coal mine is, I've got a turnout over here and a turnout here. And I've got just tree stumps here. The wires go in through brass tubing to operate the turnout, and you just grab the tree stump and move it forward and backward. Here in the hilltop area, 3-way turnout back here. It's a Pico turnout. It's about 36-inch reach. You're not going to reach this without a stool. So what I have over here on the gravel dump is I have a couple sand piles. So the wire runs through brass tubing over to the turnouts, and then these are just plastic discs with a hole in them, and then gravel is glued to the top of them. And then I have a little code here. My tracks are labeled 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to go to track 1, you slide both of the gravel piles back here to 1. If you want to go to track 2, this one goes to 2, and that one goes to 2. I've got that one removed just so you can see how it's made. If I want to go to track 3, I slide them both up and it goes to track 3. And then over here, heading out of Union, where that main line goes underneath the bridge in the tunnel area, I've got a couple crossbucks here. And the crossbuck here in the foreground, you push it down for the main line, you pull it up for the siding, because there's a turnout back here that you really don't want to try to reach. And it's just the inner and outer plastic pull cables that you can purchase, and it's just attached underneath. And you can see in the up position, it's kind of an oversized crossbuck because it has to withstand people manipulating it. So I wasn't real concerned about that. So double slips can really confuse some folks. So I've labeled all of my, it's not a double slip, that's a 3-way. So everything's marked. This is actually in Northwood, which is my staging area. So I don't have to look at a schematic and then figure out which turnout to turn. I just look at the track. All the tracks are numbered. So there's 8 tracks to our far left. If I want to go to track 1, I merely put this on track 1. And that takes you to track 1, 2, 3, or 4. If I want to go to track 5, 6, 7, or 8, I flip it over to here and I flip this one over. If I want to go to track 5, I have to flip that one over. So you're just matching up the number on the track to the numbers on the turnout controls. These, the little spring mechanisms don't work real well in the 3-ways and the double slips. The range of motion is just too small for those little steel wires to work real well. Here's another one in Walther's yard. This, if I did use a spring here, but over here I had to use a Caboose Industries because the throw was just so small I couldn't get one of these to work. So if I want to head up to the ladder for the classification, I flip it this way. If I want to go to inbound, outbound tracks 1, 2, and 3, I go to here. And if I want to go to track 9 or 10, I flip this one here. And then this takes me to the ladder. So most of my classification tracks are off ladder and ladder. So once you get used to these, they work really well. You don't have to think about it. I did the same thing coming into Southport, where I've got Caboose Industries. So if I flip this to main, it takes me to the passing siding, which is the 3rd one over here, or staging, or passing, or main. So I just have to flip these. I don't have to think about it. It's just a matter of where do you want to go. And I use these old Atlas electrical controls, and they're not electric at all. They're just manual, and that's to operate. I've got some bell cranks. It's about 36, 40-inch reach at the other end of this, so it's much too far. So I used bell cranks and these little push-pull cables. So in one position, I can get main or staging, the other I can get passing. And then this is the second turnout control where I've got staging and main. I also have an on-off switch there so that because it's in another room, I don't want locomotives taking off for some unknown reason while we're operating in the main room. Double slips can be very, very complicated. I personally don't have a problem with them because I have a really good figure ground, but for my guests, I wanted to make it simple. So I'll probably enlarge these dots, but what I've got here is each route has red, green, blue, or yellow. And then I've got matching color codes. So if I want to go from yellow to red, I just throw this switch to yellow and red and throw this switch to yellow and red. And if I want to go from blue to red, I throw this switch blue to red and blue to red. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to look. And so whole idea is to avoid derailments. Yeah, it's worked out pretty well once you get used to it. You really have to pay attention to both. You can't do just one, you have to do both. And it's just color coded. This is the south end of Walter's Yard. It's all curved turnouts. It's worked flawlessly. There are tortoise machines there because it's just too much to reach over. And you can see here I've got my tracks labeled. I don't have the main and the siding, but that's pretty obvious. But I've got track 1. Since the photo, I've got track 2, and then I've got track 3. I've got caboose, and then an E for engine escape. So I operate my tortoise machines just with a little control here in the corner. If I want to go to the main line, I just throw 2 toggles to main. If I want to come into the yard, I throw this one down to the yard. If I want to go to track 1, I flip that up to track 1. There's no more 1s anywhere else. If I want to go to track 2, I flip this down to track 2. I flip this up to track 2. There's no more 2s. If I want to go to track 3, I flip this down to 3. I flip this down to 3. I flip this up to 3. If I want to go to the engine escape track, I flip this down to E, flip this down to E, flip this down to E, flip this down to E. There's no diodes or anything. These are just wired right into the tortoise machines. I've only had one machine go south in the years I've been operating, and it just needed to be lubricated. So I took it apart and lubed it, and it works real well. So yard brings you into all of these, or you go main, or you go passing siding. So this would be siding and main. So worked real well. Operations. There's 9 towns and switchings areas. I talked about Northwood at the far north. And then Southport is at the far south with all those local turns in between. There's 2 interchange tracks, which adds a lot of variety. Again, if I don't have industries on my layout, I can just send it to an interchange track with an off layout industry. I've got staging at both ends. I can run through commuter trains up to my mine also. At Walter's Yard, I've got inbound, outbound ladders at both ends, as well as 3 inbound, outbound tracks through caboose and engine escape. It runs real well with 3 or 4 operators. We did 3 a week or so ago, and it was really relaxed, where I've got 2 road crews and 1 yard master. But I can run 4. I could run 5. The room is small. The aisleways are only 28 inches, so it gets a little bit crowded. I do 2 manifest trains, 1 running north and south out of the towns of Northwood and Southport, and then I do the 5 local turns out of the yard at Zenith, which is Walter's Yard. And then I can run as many through passenger and freight trains as I want because I've got a lot of staging tracks. So I'm going to skip through this. This was really helped me set up my waybills. It's a matrix that I found on YouTube, and it was really hard researching this on YouTube. Everybody tells you how to fill out a waybill and a car card, but they don't tell you how to put all the puzzle pieces together so that the whole operation session works well. So this is a matrix. This is only 2 towns on my matrix. I have every town. And so I would have all my industries listed here. Mad Cow Cattle Yard is 1 track. It'll hold 2 cars. My meat track for Mad Cow Meats has one track. It'll hold one car. And then my Laundry Wood Products has one track and it'll hold 4 cars. So I went through here and I listed all of my industries in my towns. And then what's important here at the top, I'm using the regular micro-mark waybills, which have, they're 4-sided waybills. So I've got cycle 1, receive and ship, cycle 2, receive and ship, cycle 3, receive and ship, cycle 4, receive and ship. So as I'm figuring out where I'm going to send my cards, as I fill out a waybill that's going to ship to Mad Cow Meats, I put a tick mark in ship or receive or ship. And what it does is it allows you to keep track of how many cars you're sending into one particular industry. So it's very easy once you start doing the first dozen cars or so. But then as these industries start filling up, you know that you've only got room for 4 cars. I've only got room for 1 car, 2 cars. I've got to be very careful that I don't overload my industries during one of those cycles, so I can move to a different industry. So this really helped me balance out my operating session so that I wasn't overloaded and I wasn't slim on certain industries. Now that I'm operating, I don't really use this anymore. I just think at the end of an operating session, boy, this place is really overloaded. I need to alter my waybills, or I need to put some of my cards in my hold box. So here I've got my homemade boxes. They just hang. I don't have anything on the fascia because there's not a lot of clearance. So these are back a couple inches and they just hang from my bench work. These are my pickups. These are my set outs. If I want to hold something over to the next operating session, I'll slip it over here into the hold box. If an operator doesn't have room to put their car at a particular industry, then they just put it off spot and it gets dealt with at the next cycle. So I've got one of these at all 7 of the industries that and then these are my cards at my yards. These are my inbound, outbound tracks, 1, 2, and 3. This is my caboose track, which I didn't really need that. And then these are my classification tracks, 5 through 10. And so these are the cars that are sitting in the yard right now. And I'm building up trains ready to head out. I've got little tags that Velcro on. So this is my, it actually says East Seward, but that photo was taken. Now it would be South Seward, but that's a train that's been made up. Looks like there's only 3 cars yet, so I'm not going to send that train out. So I'm not really operating on a schedule. I'm just operating on capacity. Looks like this train might be ready to go to, it would be actually North Seward. There's only 1 car here ready for Hilltop. This little card over here is a reminder card with some ice cubes on it. On my yard, I've got an icing track. So when a train comes in, all the yard master has to take all of the reefers to the icing track. And there's another one of these card sorters over here on the icing track. And the card stays with the car. So before you leave here to go on my Union turn, you need to make, this is a reminder card that you need to go pick up your reefer over at the icing track. This was Greg Wright's idea. It's worked really, really well. Little reminder cards to pick up your reefer before you head out of town. So when I'm switching the industries, I didn't have a lot of room because my aisles are only 28 inches. So I used Masonite to create these single card slots. Your clothing doesn't catch on them, but it's enough to just slide a single card in. They're all 32 inches long, so there's plenty of room. So the cards that are in your hand for the train that you're switching, you can just slide your cards in here. It holds your cards rather than putting them on the layout or trying to manipulate them in your hand with your beer and your controller and everything else you're dealing with. So it's worked really well. And these are just, there's a little spacer there, an 1/8 inch thick spacer. Then there's a spacer along the bottom, and then they're just nailed in. Recently, I put in a webcam so that the person that's in staging can actually see what's going on in the other room. so that they don't inadvertently head out into the main room and have a cornfield meet with somebody that's hanging out mostly at Laundry or Union. And then the computer is in the staging room. I've also added baby monitors too. So this has worked out really well. It's a cheap fix. So the baby monitor stays in the main room. And then the person that's in the staging room can constantly hear the people talking in here. If he wants to talk to the main room, he just pushes the talk button and he can talk and say, okay, am I clear to come out into Laundry? If I don't have a dispatcher, we just do the honor system. We just communicate with each other. So for 19 bucks, it's a cheap way to communicate other than banging on the wall or yelling through the wall. So that's about it. Thanks, everybody.
How often would you hold typical operating sessions? And those are 4 people, right? When you say 4 operators, you mean?
Yeah, with COVID, it's been kind of challenging. Some people don't want to come, but my good friends, Greg and Scott and Kevin have come over. I had the Olympia contingent come before COVID. I do it as often as people are interested. You know, it's a lot of fun. I generally set it up the next day, so I'm ready to go the next day for the next session. So it's been a lot of fun. Probably at least once a month, if not a couple times.
Hello again. This is another reminder that this virtual layout tour has been brought to you by members of the 4th Division of the Pacific Northwest region of the National Model Railroad Association. And we hope you've enjoyed it. And we want to encourage you to, again, find out about the NMRA online. Both PNR and NMRA have an excellent website where you can get information about joining and participating in this and other activities like our clinics that are held all over the region. So thank you for joining us today and wish you great modeling.